We're not standing alongside Boulder Creek. We have Mary Conway standing alongside Boulder Creek, monitoring the situation there. Mary, how has it changed since we talked to you just about an hour ago?
Well, Mike and Ann, it has really come up. We were talking about a cement pipe that was sticking out that had just become submerged. Well, there's no sign of that. There were a couple of big rocks that we could see earlier. It has really started to churn and churn and churn, get a little more violent. Anyone who was watching us this morning around 7, we were showing this rock. And then we were also showing all the debris field and how high it had gotten on Thursday. Well, there was a good foot and a half between the bottom of that debris and the water early this morning, and that has all disappeared now. We were also talking about the tons and tons of mud that the water brought with it when it swept up over its banks. And it was deposited on this parking lot, and we had crews here this morning that were trying to shovel a lot of that up, and people don't realize how damaging that mud can be. I'm joined now by a business owner, Kendall Chitambar, who is with a tennis facility. You're located at the Millennium Hotel?
Yeah, it's the Rocky Mountain Tennis Center in Boulder at the Millennium Hotel.
And what has the mud done to your facility?
Well, we've got 7 courts that are buried about a foot to a foot and a half in mud, just all the way across the whole facility. Pro shop was filled with about 6 inches of mud, so we're pretty well boxed in.
Well, and Kendall, you were saying this is going to take like 6 weeks to get back?
It's got to be at least that to get all that mud out of there. There's just tons and tons of it.
And you were talking about the debris that came up. You had fences that held some of it back, but what are you seeing?
Huge tree trunks and branches everywhere. We had a pink flamingo that was deposited on one of our courts, just standing up in the middle of the mud. I mean, just outrageous. It's an outrageous scene.
Well, and you're a pretty good sport about what's going on, but it's so hard. What happens to your employees in this time?
Well, we're all pitching together. We had 20 to 30 volunteers, and all our coaches and pro shop staff and the other owners out shoveling as best we could and trying to build up a berm in case it floods again. But everyone's pulling together, and we're just trying to keep a positive attitude on this.
Well, and you were watching this water come up. What does go through your mind as you're seeing this, and you have a business on the line?
Well, Thursday night, around 10:30, I went down to check on things, and the water was freely flowing over our courts. We had about 2 to 3 feet of water just flowing freely over the courts, and you just wonder, how long it's going to take to get things back to normal. And we have a great population of tennis players in the area, and they all seem to be, pulling together, and we just hope for the best.
Is any part of your facility still open?
We had 5 or 6 courts that were almost untouched, and so we'll get to have people playing there. We already had some folks playing yesterday in the with a moment of sunshine. We had a few folks out playing, which was great to see. And we partner up with the University of Colorado here in Boulder, and they use our facility in the wintertime, and we get to play out there in the summer. And their courts, thankfully, were untouched out at CU South.
You were talking about how hard it is to fix those courts at a time like this, that you have to actually bring them up. Why?
Well, the surface is pretty sensitive. You can't just start shoveling away. You break the surface up pretty well, and mud like this can sit on there and make the surface even more fragile. So you have to go in there with plastic shovels, just a bunch of folks doing it one shovel at a time.
Well, and you were also saying you're affiliated with the hotel. What happened to the Millennium Hotel in all of this?
The hotel got about 30 rooms flooded out, and I understand FEMA was down there today helping assess the situation and helping to start the cleanup. But we all work together, and our hearts go out to all those that were affected.
Well, and obviously too early to put a dollar figure on any of this.
Yeah, pretty early.
Well, Kendall Chitambar, thanks so much for joining us. Good luck with your business, and I'm so glad at least part of it is still open. But as you look at this water, that is the huge concern, not just what they've been through, but what could happen again, especially as it kicks up. And that really is the big concern. It's about 4 feet below where it got to its highest level on Thursday. But again, it's something that these people can't help but think about. Thank goodness right now we do have a break in the rain. It was raining very, very hard here for a while, but it certainly has let up, at least for now. I'm Mary Conway reporting live in Boulder.
And Mary, just to help give us some perspective here, I know you said you're along Boulder Creek. Where exactly are you in Boulder County?
Well, when you're talking about Boulder Creek, if you're across the street, that's where the CU library is. A little bit past that would be the Pearl Street Mall. I am right in front of the city's library. And this is a municipal parking lot right here, and you can see all that mud. Now, they had crews here all morning long. They're not working right now, whether they've been called away to a more emergent situation, I really don't know. There's a human resources building that's just down that way. But that kind of gives you an idea of where we are. Broadway is just that way from us. We were talking a little earlier about the bike path underneath Broadway along the creek here. That's totally submerged at this point.
Wow, so that is so telling.
Yeah, absolutely. You've given us a nice look at all of that. In talking to, you've run into obviously a lot of folks while you're out there. Still a lot of looky-loos out there, or are they kind of cleared away for the time being?
Actually, there are more now because it really has brightened up quite a bit. We have clouds, but it is not pouring like it was for a while. We still have some people coming through and taking pictures. Not very many. There was a family from Niwot. They had come to check on their son who was a student here. He was fine. They were fine. They just wanted to get a little perspective on the situation. But again, people not being malicious in any way, but just kind of trying to get an idea for themselves. The big concern that officials have, they want people to stay back from that water. It can be kind of mesmerizing. They don't want anybody going anywhere near it or falling in, because at this point it is quite desperate. You can see how violently it's churning behind us.
Well, and not only that, Mary, once we saw particularly the parking lot, but all of that green area, for those folks who are familiar with that area you're in near the library, there is so much mud. I'm struck by that there's mud everywhere.
There is, and you know, they had crews out here, and we were out at 7 in the morning, and they had crews working nonstop till about 11, and they took several huge truckloads out of here, and they are taking it to an area where they're calling a spoiled area at the Public Works yard, and they're putting it in a separate pile because they're afraid of contamination. They don't know what is in the water because so many sewage areas and sewer ridge pipes have been breached. They don't know how toxic or contaminated any of that water may be, so they're being very, very careful.
You're making a very good point there, Mary, and that is that people, while they look at all of us and say, gee, isn't that interesting and what a remarkable point in time, they should stay away from that water, not jump in it.
Absolutely, and that is a huge concern. We saw some younger people walking through with like flip-flops. It is such a dangerous idea because there could be E. coli, there could be all sorts of things in that water. You definitely want to stay out of it. I don't wear big rubber boots because they're so attractive and the big rain suit because I'm such a dainty girl.
I wanted to compliment you on your...
My husband said, you're really going out there dressed like that, but it's like you can't be too careful.
Well, we absolutely appreciate you being out there for us in Boulder tonight. Thank you so much. We appreciate it, Mary. And we should remind you that the city of Boulder did put out earlier today, even in fact, that libraries, the rec centers, the senior centers, they're all closed today. So really it is a good idea to stay at home. And they're also suggesting that you conserve water. Yes, we have an abundance of water, but it is thick, gooey, and muddy out there, and yes, and contaminated in some places. So do be aware of that.